Can you tell me about Trista?
Trista was your typical 18-year-old teenage girl. She liked going out with her friends, and she liked music.
Loved music.
Yeah, she loved music. She had just graduated high school. She was planning to go to college this spring. She was not typical in that she really loved kids, and she wanted to be a social worker or a child psychologist. That was her plan.
She was also not typical in that she was not selfish, I guess, or so much so as most kids are. Like, she didn't just think of herself. She really almost only thought of other people.
Yeah, she worked for a local, like a dairy fast food chain that's here in Oklahoma. And she'd worked there for about 2 years. And same job. Her first job was her only job. And they had recently made her a manager. And so she was making pretty good money for being a teenage girl. And most of the time, she would spend the vast majority of her paychecks on her little brother.
Mhm.
She bought him a brand new iPhone. She bought him. She bought him the new Air Jordan sneakers.
She would give him money to walk down to the store and get snacks and stuff, and just always.
She was hilariously funny.
A lot of the time she didn't mean to be. But.
Yeah, she didn't always mean to be, but she loved to laugh, and she loved to make other people laugh. There was so I'm 46, and we get advertisements here in America for Medicaid and things that, like
hearing
aids and things like that as you start to get older.
Senior living places and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it normally doesn't start until you're after 55.
Yeah. 55, 60 is normally when you start getting all this stuff. Well, about a year ago, I started getting a lot of like Beltone advertisements in the mail, and I would get senior living, AARP, which is like a senior discount organization here in the United States. And I would get all this stuff in the mail. And I was like, why am I getting all of this mail for old people? I'm not that old. And she would just walk by and say, well, you're getting kind of old, Dad. And
you should probably hang on to those.
Yeah.
I need them.
Yeah. After she passed, her stepsister asked me, she's like, you didn't know that she signed you up for all that stuff? I said, no. Yeah, my daughter had gone in and signed me up to get all of this old people stuff. Just
put his email and address and
just
everything.
To make fun of me and to get a laugh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like such an amazing person.
She was pretty funny.
Yeah, she was very funny. And we found her bucket list under her bed that she had made when she was 16 years old, and she had been keeping up with it for about 2 years. And the majority of her bucket list, it has 67 things on it, and the majority of her bucket list is things for other people.
She couldn't wait to turn 18 so that she could donate blood. She wanted to adopt a teenager because people normally, just adopt babies. She wanted to give love to the unloved, the children that nobody wanted. She wanted them. She knew that they needed a parent too. She wanted to be a foster parent. She
had
so many different things that she
wanted to be a mother.
Yeah.
This was all on her bucket list. She was if you needed someone to talk to or someone, she was who you wanted to talk to.
Yeah. Her older sister would always, she was the one that she got advice from, which seems totally backwards, but that's the way that it worked with them. And she was the one who kept her in line, and she's really missing her. She was her other half there.
Yeah.
So she had a boyfriend. They had been dating. this is a little bit of who she was. Trista was very assertive. She wasn't really bashful or
No, not meek in any way.
yeah. She was very assertive, very strong-willed. Like I said, she worked the same job for 2 years and was being promoted. She knew what she wanted and she went after it. And she dated the same boy for about a year and a half, and we lucked out. He was a good kid, really good kid. And occasionally, as couples do, they would get into arguments. And once it was resolved, how he knew that it was resolved, he actually told me this story after her funeral, because I didn't know. But if you can see all of the little bears on the window,
Yeah.
we're in her bedroom right now. Those are called forgiveness bears. And
For them.
yeah, for them. And what that basically means was he worked at a grocery store, and in I don't know how it is over there, but in here at the grocery store, they also sell balloons and flowers and
Yeah.
Like greeting cards.
greeting cards. So it's like a flower shop right in the
Yeah.
middle of the grocery store. Well, he worked
Mhm.
right near that area, and he had his job for quite a while. And so every time they would have an argument, after the argument was settled and over, she would go up to his work. She would pick out a bear, hold it up, and say, "You're buying me this," and turn around and walk out. And
That,
yeah,
that meant the argument was
that
over.
meant the argument was over.
He was
and,
forgiven.
Yeah, but
and,
she got
yeah.
a stuffed animal out of the day. Yeah,
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She was a really good kid.
And she sounds like she was very mature for her age as well, and so caring.
yeah,
She really was.
she was. She made the world a much better place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, can you walk me through the timeline? So, I know that I think the vaccines were available, I guess, September 2020, right? Or 2021?
I think somewhere or that
It was
for children,
2020, I believe.
yeah, for adults, I think they were available in 2020.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
had talked with our family and our kids and amongst ourselves. We weren't really anti-vax people.
Just anti this
Yeah,
particular one.
but we didn't like how this one was rolled out.
There wasn't enough information. It hadn't been tested enough. So we just thought, let's not do this right now.
Right.
Let's not
And
get it right now.
we knew that COVID had a high,
Survival rate.
a low mortality rate.
Yeah.
And I thought it was probably going to be, for a healthy young person, going to be not that bad. So for us, the lack of information that we had about the vaccine versus the amount of information we had about the virus, it didn't really add up to where we wanted to go risk taking this injection. So we talked with the kids about this, and we kind of just thought we were all on the same page. So
Mhm.
none of us got the vaccine initially. We all just dealt with the lockdowns. We dealt with
Which those weren't really bad.
Yeah,
we didn't have lockdowns really.
I mean, some stores closed and some people were out of work. You had to wear a mask in certain places, but there wasn't a big enforcement of like you could go to the park and not wear a mask and the police would not mess with you. It's not like and it wasn't that big of a deal. But there were venues and events that required masks.
Concert venues.
Yeah. In June, what we've learned after the fact is that in June of 2022, she went to a concert and she was not vaccinated. She didn't have a card and she didn't have a negative test. So the venue made her wear a mask the whole time. Her friends that she went with were either vaccinated, or had a negative test result, and they didn't have to wear masks. So she was forced to wear a mask for this concert. And I believe that it was at that point she thought to herself, I'm just going to go get this vaccine because I'm going to college. They may require it for college. This venue requires it or forces me to wear this mask.
She had big plans for the summer, so
she wanted to travel,
yeah.
and she knew that she would have it to travel. And so I think she made the decision because she had just turned 18 years old. So she said, well, I'm 18 now, so I can go get it if I want to get it. This is what she was telling herself. And she decided at that point that she was going to go get it, and she wasn't going to tell us that she got it.
And she decided she wanted to go to a different doctor than we normally go to. She wanted her own doctor. She explained it to us that she was 18 and wanted to do adult things for herself. You know, she wanted to go to the doctor for herself. She wanted to have her own things.
Yeah.
But did not tell us that she was going to get this shot. She just told us she was going in for a checkup and to have, you know, blood work done and have her yearly checkup.
Okay.
So she told us about all that.
Yeah.
She told us how she had the blood work done and that nothing came back out of the ordinary. Everything was fine. She got a clean bill of health.
I remember the day she came back. She's like, hey, everything from the doctor came back great.
Yeah.
You know, and she said, all my blood work looks good.
And when was that?
That was July 20th.
Yeah. And
is when she went to the doctor. Yeah.
When she went to the doctor and she also got the shot that day.
Right.
But she didn't tell us that part.
Right. And being able to look back on it now, we can see where things started to change.
She started being tired all the time. I mean, all the time. She would get sick when she ate. She would get really dizzy.
Yeah.
She would stand up and say, ooh, you know, everything went black for a minute and just kind of laugh it off. And we just put off that she was working too hard or needed to eat some more protein or something. You know, we didn't know she'd had the shot. So
yeah, I'm a fat guy, you know, I'm a large fellow, and she was a little girl, you know, and she would stand up. And like towards the end of the summer, she would stand up and she would go, you know, woo, woo, everything just went black. And she would laugh. And she's like, I'm okay now. I'm okay now. And then she would laugh and I would laugh and I would say, well, that's because you need to eat some steak. You know, you need to get some food in you. Be fat like dad, fat and healthy, you know, and we'd make a joke of it. And then that was it. She never complained really of anything else. She never.
So which vaccine was it? Was it Pfizer or the Moderna?
It was Pfizer BioNTech FN2908.
And on the day, so you didn't know that at that time you hadn't known that she had gotten the shot, but have you noticed usually, you know, that after the shot people feel like they have flu or something like that? Have you noticed her being sick in any way the day after the shot?
She was not like a complainer. And so if she didn't feel well, she probably would have just gone and laid down and not said anything about it. So,
and that's all we noticed was, now we didn't know that she got the vaccine. And before July, her whole life before July, she was energetic, bubbly.
She would get up and go take the dogs for a walk.
Yeah, she went to the gym and she would jog around the neighborhood. She was very active. She worked a lot. Her job knew that she would do fill-in shifts, so they requested it of her a lot. So she worked a lot of hours.
Tell them no, really.
Yeah, she never said no, and she just worked. Yeah. But after she went to the doctor, starting in about August and September, like I said, the only thing we noticed, looking back now, was her complaining of the dizziness when she stood up, because she never did that before. Her sleeping a lot, her being very tired, and because she had never really done that before. So being able to look back before she died, that's the only things that we can see that were different. She never really had like a flu-like that she complained of. She never said she was sore. She never said anything like that. She just complained of lightheadedness, tiredness.
She didn't even really complain. She just couldn't hide it when she stood up and was dizzy. You know, she was like, whoa. So she just was not a complainer.
Right. And that went on through August and September. and October. And then on November, she had the day off, the night off, and she said she was going to go spend the night with
her sister,
her sister
and
and
their
a friend. And they did that sometimes. They would stay up and watch movies and play board games and take selfies and do girl stuff. And she didn't drink. She didn't do drugs. She didn't. She was scared to death of like, illicit drugs.
Yeah.
She unknowingly ate a hot
Like a spicy starburst.
a spicy starburst. Yeah, it's a kind of candy
Yeah.
here in the United States, and she didn't read the label, and she didn't know that it was going to be spicy, and she started freaking out, thinking that she got poisoned.
Yeah.
And we had to go dig in the trash to find the wrapper to prove to her that she was not poisoned and that she was okay. So I mean, the idea of her taking some kind of drug is just absolutely alien.
Which we know from the tests that they did in the hospital that all of that came back negative. She wasn't on any type of drug or anything.
Because a lot of people say, well, it was probably fentanyl that killed her, or something like that. And she had no fentanyl in her system.
No.
She had no drugs in her system. Her toxicology came back clean in the hospital. But so on the morning of the 9th of November,
she woke up. She woke up about 8 o'clock at her friend's house, and she said that she was having trouble breathing and that her body was aching all over. She said, I hurt everywhere. She said, I don't feel good. I can't breathe very well. And she said she was just going to go lay back down to try and feel better. And her sister went and checked on her maybe about 10 minutes later and couldn't get her to wake up. And at that time, she was still breathing and everything, but she just couldn't get her to wake up. And so they called me, and I rushed over there, made it there pretty quick. And I found that she had stopped breathing. And so started CPR and called an ambulance, and they finally got there. I'm sure it was really quick. It seemed to take forever, but and they worked on her for a really long time and finally got her heart beating again. They had to shock her several times and give her all kinds of stuff. It was awful. But they finally got her in the ambulance and got her to the hospital. Her heart stopped several times in the ambulance as well, they said. They got her there, and we've since found out from the hospital records that her heart stopped a few more times before they let us see her. But
I was getting ready to go to work, and I got the phone call to come to the hospital from my wife. And so when I got there, there was 50 doctors and nurses, hospital staff all around her. Her face was white, and nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew what was going on. And we started hearing a lot of terminology, a lot of information. They did CAT scans and sonograms and CT scan, all kinds of tests and stuff. And the doctor comes in and he says, I'm going to be honest with you. In situations like this, we give her about a 1% chance.
And we were like, situations like what? What is happening?
What is happening?
Daughter.
Why is my 18-year-old perfectly healthy daughter dying in your hospital?
And he didn't have an answer for us.
Didn't have an answer.
He just said, well, when, we don't know what's going on yet, but when someone comes in and presents like this, they weren't breathing, their heart stopped, Her kidneys were starting to shut down. They had given her bag upon bag of fluids, and there was nothing coming out in the catheter. And he said that they wanted to start her on dialysis, but that they couldn't because it would kill her. And so they were trying to get her more stable and get her body, you know, breathing on its own again and everything, because they were keeping her alive with machines at that moment. So,
and we started hearing words like multiple system organ failure, myocarditis, like she said, and he pointed down to a bag hanging on the side of the bed, and he said nothing's coming out. He said we've given her a lot of fluid and we've got nothing out of the catheter. He's like her body is shut down. And I remember asking, because I know that she went a while without breathing, and I know that she went a while with her heart stopped. But me being the optimist, I guess, or thinking that the idea of my daughter
think about
dying,
your child dying, yeah.
I was worried about her brain. You know, I was worried. I was like, is she going to have to learn to walk again? Is she going to have problems with speech? And the doctor said, oh, we're not even looking at that point yet. He's like, we're trying to fix her body. We're trying to make her stay alive. I think right about then was when I realized that
this is really, really
this
bad.
is really, really, really
and
bad.
really happening.
Yeah, really, really bad. They decided that they had her stable enough where they could move her from the first floor,
like emergency,
to an ICU area. And so they said, we're going to move her. If you guys need to, you know, this is where they're going to put her.
And that's where they were going to start the dialysis.
Yeah. And it was right around that time that one of her friends, one of Trista's friends, told us, I think I should tell you guys that Trista did get the vaccine, but she told us not to tell you.
And so we were like, God, I wish she, you know, hadn't have done that. We really didn't want her to get that, but at the moment we didn't.
Yeah, we
didn't put it together, you know, because there was nothing. There was, at that point in time, there was not a whole lot on the news about that type of thing, or anywhere about, you know, the horrible things that were happening from the vaccine.
And with the censorship, the media not covering any of these cases, Facebook removing anybody who dares speak of something like this, and at the time, Twitter even, most of the world lives in this designed bubble to be protected from stories like Trista's, stories like this. So we were in that bubble. We had no idea that we'd heard the occasional little thing, but like everybody else, you know, that hears even this story, they're going to say, I know lots of people who got the vaccine and they seem fine.
Yeah.
You know, we were there. So I thought, you know, really, what's the chances that the vaccine did this to our daughter?
We just didn't really even think about it. It just went over, you know. Okay, yeah, she got it. Okay, now let's get back to saving her. You know, it wasn't a thing at all.
It wasn't. At that point, it was just kind of, well, that's unfortunate. Really wish she wouldn't have done that, but how do we fix her? How do we make this better? Once she got up into the ICU, it never got better.
She just started going downhill. They thought that they had her well enough at the point that they could take her up there and start the dialysis. But then once just the moving up there, everything started to go back down. Her heart rate was going back down. It was really low. And she just started to decline. And
so the doctor comes in and he says, we've got some decisions to make.
Which is something you never want to hear as a parent. It was the most awful statement I think I've ever heard in my life. He
says that all of the CPR has broken her body very badly. And that more aggressive CPR, if she flatlines again, is
kill her fast.
Is going to kill her. He said her body can't take any more CPR. Do you want us to make her comfortable and let her pass? Do you want us to continue trying to save her with medicines and treatments? But if she passes,
if she flatlines
again, let her pass? Or do you want us to continue to treat her, and if she flatlines again, try aggressive CPR?
He said, I guarantee it will kill her.
He said, but I do not believe that the aggressive CPR is going to save her.
We ultimately, had to go with the second option. It just wasn't in us to say, no, just make her comfortable. We hadn't given up yet. You can't, I don't know, that's not in, I don't think, a parent's mind. You can't give up on your kid like that. And so we said, no, please, keep treating her with all of the medications, with doing all of the stuff that you can. But if she does flatline again, we will let her go.
And so a couple hours go by, and what was 20 or 30 people in the room reduced down to, medical staff reduced down to about 2.
And that's when you notice that they're no longer have any faith that they can treat her. They know she's just going, and they're really just there to answer your questions or make sure that she is comfortable. And it's very eerie and very just, I don't know how to explain it, heart-wrench. When you see everyone around there just trying their hardest to take care of her, and then all of a sudden there's just nurses checking the stats, and you're just basically sitting in there waiting for your child to go. And it's
so at 5:05, which is 17:05, her heart stopped and she was pronounced dead. When they when she died, they ask everybody to leave so that they can kind of clean up the area, clean her up, make it a little bit more presentable, and then they let you come back in to spend some time with the body. For me, this was one of the most confusing parts.
just surreal, really.
Because we're there, we spent, I think we, I don't know if we overstayed our welcome, but they were super nice at the hospital. They weren't trying to rush us out of the room or anything, but you do feel that pressure, like,
It's been, I think we were there
it's been a few hours,
hours.
and her body is just laying there, and you realize that you have to go, you have to leave.
You have to just leave
The
weirdest feeling of just like, so we just leave without her? Like we just leave without our child?
I wanted to pick her up.
Yeah.
And carry her to the car, I wanted to take my baby girl with me.
Yeah.
But you don't. You just leave her on this bed.
With strangers, which seems so wrong. But that's evidently what you do.
Her hands were so cold. And she was short, shorter than me, obviously. And every time we hugged or kissed, I would hug her and I would kiss the top of her forehead. And I remember thinking, okay, what do I got to get done? Because the last chance I'm going to get to do it. So I grabbed her and I kissed the top of her forehead. I held her hand. I stroked her hair. And then we left.
It, um, do you remember doctors? Did they? I mean, did they have any kind of ideas? What did they give any suggestions as to?
They were absolutely stumped. They said that they don't know. They don't know. They said her heart is swollen. All of her organs have shut down. And
she had a blood glucose level.
She had a blood glucose level of over 600. We heard the number 610, but she has no history of diabetes. There's no history of diabetes in her family. And they said she had inflammation, multiple system inflammation. She had inflammation. Her organs had shut down. Her heart was swollen, but they didn't know why.
And they actually, now that we're like, think about it, the only thing that they really asked us was if she did drugs. They didn't ask us if she was vaccinated.
Yeah, they never asked.
They didn't ask any of that.
So we go home and we are surrounded by love, family, stuff like that for a week. And we deal with the funeral services and and we ended up she gets cremated. We were told that the medical examiner here in Oklahoma had taken the case so that they could try to figure out what killed her, why she died. So we were at least a little hopeful about that, because at that point we were like, we have no idea what's happening, no idea why she died. And so after the funeral, about maybe a week and a half, I went into just Google and I put in myocarditis, high blood glucose, healthy, non-diabetic 18-year-old female. And the very first thing that popped up was a study on NIH.gov that said COVID vaccine, mRNA, high blood glucose level in both diabetic and non-diabetic patients. The basis of the study basically said that mRNA vaccines in early trials back in 2020, they were seeing an elevated blood glucose level in a lot of patients, and they recommended close blood glucose monitoring for all people who received the mRNA vaccine. And I remember thinking to myself, how many millions of people got this vaccine at drugstores and CVS's
and drive-throughs? I mean,
yeah.
Here they had where you would just drive up.
Yeah.
And
the same here. Yeah, shopping centers. You go shopping and then you just pop in for a jab. And I never heard about that you need to monitor your glucose. It never, ever I saw it anywhere.
Right. And I was like, nobody was monitoring this. They didn't even file or follow their own recommendations on this. And then I started looking up myocarditis and how it's a known side effect or adverse reaction to the mRNA vaccine,
especially in what was it, 18 to 25-year-olds?
8 to 20. Actually, it says mostly it's affected by males. 18 to 25-year-old males are more susceptible to it, but it did say that now we know that females are just as affected by it as males are. The difference, I think, is that the young males have a tendency to be in sports. They have a tendency to be more active, and their heart rates get pumping faster. And if you have myocarditis, it causes a tragic event. So
Yeah.
the young girls might not necessarily be as active as the young boys. So, but the swelling and the inflammation in the
Biologically, both, yeah,
right,
genders are,
right is
yeah.
the same on both.
Which we have
Mhm.
since also found out from speaking with doctors, a doctor out of Canada actually, that the time when she passed it's either early in the morning like
Yeah.
that, right when someone's getting ready to wake up, or during like
Strenuous
sports or
exercise.
strenuous
Yeah.
exercise. That's when the myocarditis affects you the most and can kill you,
Right.
because your body speeds your heart up to get you to wake up and gives you a boost of adrenaline right then.
Right. That's part
Yeah.
of how your body wakes you up, is it pumps a little bit of adrenaline into your system, and that spurs you awake in the morning. That's why so many of these deaths are occurring of people in their sleep. It's because they're just about to wake up. Their body pumps a little bit of adrenaline, and it causes their heart to beat faster, and they
Just
die.
enough to,
They die from myocarditis and inflammation and pericarditis. And then if you do survive that, and you get up and then you go out and exercise, or you go out, then you're just as likely to die then as well. So any kind of excessive pumping of the heart while having myocarditis is a bad thing.
Just to go back a little bit, so the day when she went to see to her friend's house, has she said anything? How was she feeling that day before she went?
She seemed to be
Fine.
just fine. I mean, they have lots of pictures of them all together and everything. They said she was, beating them all at the board games. They said she seemed just fine.
Yeah.
It was that quick, that instant, that
And were there any? Did she do maybe anything, any sports or anything? Was there anything else coming that day?
no.
No. She was off that day. I think they went. Did they go? She go to the zoo?
I don't think that day.
Was it not? I think she had spent the day with her boyfriend, and they just
Just a regular
Well,
normal day.
yeah, just a regular normal day.
And you said that at the hospital they checked and she didn't have any drugs in her system. That's
No.
been, yeah,
Yes,
that's
that's been proven.
confirmed. That's
Yes.
proven.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have all the
Medical records
records from the hospital.
from the ER.
And when you found out that, when you made the link that it could have been because of the vaccine, what did you think?
Well, we immediately started researching that
everything that we can. I mean, it became like a second job.
Right. And
research.
We started researching and looking for additional studies. Luckily, it's actually the day she died was the day that movie Died Suddenly came out.
Oh, okay.
That's the Died Suddenly by Stu Peters.
It's the one where they talk about, it's medical examiners that were all kind of calling each other around this time saying, are you finding weird blood clots, like these long streaky white blood clots and everything? And so that's when that came out. Yeah,
it came out that same day that she died. And so I still haven't seen that movie. I don't want to watch that movie. I feel like I lived it. I don't need to watch it. I think I have watched it.
Yeah.
But we were contacted by Stu Peters people, and that was when we went on, and
that was our first interview.
Our first interview was with Stu Peters and the Died Suddenly crew. And so that put us in contact with a lot of other doctors. We've met Dr. Peter McCullough, who is we've met him and talked with him in person. And we've had the privilege of speaking with a lot of really great doctors.
A lot of really great people too that are injured from this, or have lost people, and others who are just advocates for this, who have been doing the research themselves too.
Yeah. When you look at it, there's another there's so many now that the media doesn't want to cover. You know, there's all over the world. Caitlin Goatsey out of Australia, her mother Raylene. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Caitlin, she died 24 days after her booster shot. Sean Hartman was the son of Dan Hartman. He's Canadian. He died 33 days. His mother found him on the floor beside his bed, dead. There's Ernesto Ramirez, Ernest Ramirez's son.
They're out of Texas.
Out of Texas. He died 5 days after the shot. So the time span can be anywhere from days to months. The effect is cumulative. It seems like younger people who have more robust immune systems are more adversely affected by it than the older people. If an older person gets the mRNA shot, their immune system is already weaker, and so they don't have that, what they call the cytokine storm, and they don't overproduce that spike protein that causes all of the inflammation.
Right.
So there's that. Also, there's what they call hot batches. There's evidence now coming out that the drug manufacturers are aware of hot batches, but they don't withhold them. They don't recall them. A hot batch.
Can you explain? Yeah, what?
Right.
Yeah.
So a hot batch is a batch that has significantly more adverse reactions and deaths than other batches. The reason why that is because when they manufacture this mRNA vaccine, they produce it in these giant vats. And everybody's heard the phrase lipid nanoparticle. I think you know that a lot. Well, what a lipid is fat. And what do we know about fat? Fat floats.
Yeah.
So the very first runs to come off of these giant vats has significantly more of the lipid nanoparticle that carries that messenger RNA in it than the ones further down. So the very first ones, you get that first run off the top of a brand new batch of mRNA COVID shot, it can have up to 40,000 more times the amount of lipid nanoparticle in it than the one from the last batch.
Okay.
So just because you're going to get a Moderna shot, an AstraZeneca mRNA, or a Pfizer mRNA shot does not mean that you got the same quantity or quality of product as the person who did and got it somewhere else.
And where is this information available? Is this confirmed? Is this the
This is it pulls the information from VAERS, which is the VAERS.org.
I don't remember.
It's VAERS is the name of the organization, and really the easiest way to find the information is to go to howbadismybatch.com, and that one will allow you to look up by your particular batch number for whatever mRNA shot you got or your loved one got or whatever, and it pulls all that information. The vast majority of the information that's in VAERS is submitted by doctors and health professionals. You can submit data to VAERS through a verifying process that they do with you. That takes a couple of months. That's what we had to do with Trista's data. So, but they verify the death, they verify the shot, they verify the actual physical location of the event, and so it is verified data.
The whole idea that younger people they don't even feel like they're having coronavirus. It's just like they have corona and then it's just there are no symptoms and symptomless. There's absolutely seems like completely, I don't know, unnecessary to get the vaccine. What do you I guess you live in US. I think US is one of those strictest countries it's still safe, right? It's still safe and effective in US.
Supposedly.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is still people, the government still is holding on to that. What can you say? What to people who who are going to be watching this?
It is not safe. It is not effective.
It's not worth it
The
at all.
one of the things that our research has proven is that they needed this. The giant pharmaceutical companies and the people who have financial interest in those giant pharmaceutical companies needed this thing to be, they needed two things to happen. One, they needed to be no other authorized treatment.
Yeah.
So if they found out that a cheap drug, I don't know, like hydroxychloroquine,
Yeah.
actually fought this sickness and saved lives, then
It was
it
in
would,
direct competition
yeah,
with
it would
them.
prevent the emergency use authorization that they were aiming for, that they were striving to get, so that they could mass produce this shot in billions and billions of doses and make billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Mhm.
So if a drug like hydroxychloroquine did actually help COVID, there was billions of dollars behind a campaign to try to tell you that it did not work. Because if it worked, that would play hell on their ability to get this authorized for emergency use. That's the first thing they needed to happen. The second thing they needed to happen was for this shot to be considered safe and effective so that the masses would take it. There's still a lot of investigation going on by a lot of people as to the actual devastation that this shot has caused. The amount of people that have been affected by it, we know that it's billions. And what those drug companies did to try to mitigate the disaster that they were setting up. There's some people suggest that some of the batches are nothing more than saline.
Yeah.
That it's not,
Just to get their numbers
Yeah.
up.
I mean, that way they could charge the amount of money that they wanted to charge, tell you were getting a vaccine, and have no adverse reaction because you're just getting saline. We know now, when we were originally told that the shot stopped you from getting coronavirus. It doesn't stop you from getting coronavirus. Okay, well, it stops you from transmitting it to your loved ones.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, it doesn't stop you from transmitting it to your loved. Okay, well, it does. You can still get it and you can still transmit it, but it's going to make it easier for your body to deal with when you do get coronavirus. Now we know that it doesn't even do that. And its efficacy lasts, if it has any efficacy at all, it only lasts a matter of days in some instances. Days. You get the shot, and then 2 weeks later, it has negative efficacy. You're actually more likely to get the COVID virus, and you're more likely to get another virus.
It's torn down your immune system.
Yeah, because it's invaded your immune system and made you sick. So there is absolutely no reason at this point for anyone to get the vaccine, this mRNA shot. But let's say that it does have some kind of assistance, some kind of medical efficacy to elderly people or people with comorbidities. Let's say that it did help the elderly and it did help people with diabetes or heart problems or something. But let's say that it did. Why are we not just
promoting
it for them? Why are we trying to get 6-month-old babies to get this shot? Why are we forcing 25-year-olds, 18-year-olds, telling them that they have to get this, or they have to wear a mask to go to college, or get it at all to go to college? College age people don't die from the COVID virus. Statistically speaking, 0 people have died. 0 healthy young people have died from the coronavirus. There is a 25-year-old healthy human has a 99.9999% survival rate when it comes to COVID-19. So the fact that they're pushing this on young people is a red flag right there. It's disturbing. It is beyond criminal, and it's disgusting, and it needs to stop.
And what do you think about the restrictions? I think the restrictions, I'm sure, were very strict. Maybe still are. I'm not sure, but at least in Germany, they were very restricting. And even if you understood that an experimental vaccine, even if you understood that probably it's not a good idea to take it, your freedom was so restricted. It was so hard even to kind of get by because you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't socialize, you couldn't even go to shops to buy anything, you couldn't go to a cafe, you could nothing, especially if you have kids. You couldn't do any activities unless you were vaccinated, and they were not accepting even even if you were not sick with COVID, that wasn't not enough. You had to have the vaccine in order to be accepted in the society.
Right.
And I think that was one of the main reasons I think a lot of people understood that it's experimental, but still people were so eager to get back to this normal life that they risked their lives.
Yeah.
Having this vaccine.
They used fear and to make people do this.
And guilt.
Yeah.
They used fear and fake guilt.
Yeah.
And that's you know, what is it? There's a saying that says quarantine is isolating sick people from healthy people. And that's not at all what they were doing. That wasn't quarantine.
No.
That's oppression.
Yeah, that was definitely oppression.
Oppression is isolating healthy people from each other. And the fact that they did this and that people decided to fall in line with the evil demons that were doing it to them instead of rising up and saying, no, you're not going to do this to us, which I mean, there's in a lot of countries right now that is in fact happening. And as long as you let a tyrant control you, they're going to control you. So you have to stop letting the tyrants control you.
Yeah.
And I guess my personal concern about this is that, you know, after once, I mean, in my eyes, this is a crime. This is it is. And it looks like we are moving on as a society. It just feels like we're just moving on. And okay, so things are better now. COVID is over. Thank God. Let's just focus on something else and get back to normal life. And it's just like, it looks like no one is being held responsible for this. It looks like the majority of people are not talking about it. And if there's no, if no one is found guilty and shown to the people, okay, this was wrong. Now people are paying for this. My concern is no lesson is learned.
Right.
It seems like only small groups of people are just know about this and talking about this, but the majority are just like trying to forget what happened. And it seems like it's going to happen again unless we learn a lesson.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why doing things like this, why like this podcast, having to tell the story that happened to us and happened to our daughter. This is why this is so important. This is why we have to do this, because we have to spur these people. And I think that today's society has, we have really been suffering a lot on a global scale, not just America, the whole world. We've all been suffered by these tyrants, and our ability to suffer those wrongs is very high. We have, I think we are the most apathetic society that of the human race has ever seen. I don't know why that is. I don't know why.
I think because it's such a quick culture now. Like something you see it one day and then there's something new the next day. So you've forgotten about the thing that happened yesterday. With social media and so much that we can see, I mean, just television and everything that we can see all the time.
Yeah.
I think that it makes our minds, go move on to the next thing.
It's like something shiny, you know, oh man, that's terrible. Ooh, something shiny, and then you've lost touch. But yeah, back in the day, I mean, there wasn't even newspapers, you heard what you heard and you saw what you saw, and then that's what you talked about. And there wasn't,
you had to live in it.
Yeah, you lived it. There wasn't a new latest greatest trend that came along and kind of took it over. Those trends lasted longer. And so, but now we've been programmed to just go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing.
And it's such a throwaway culture. We live in such
Yeah.
a throwaway world that if, something doesn't work, just forget it, get something new. It's such a horrible way to live.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it literally is causing our demise.
And I think that we are so connected now because like this, like we're speaking to you, you're in Germany right now and we're in, the United States.
Yeah.
But you're sitting in your room and we're sitting in our room. Like we're together, but so isolated still. I think that's how a lot of us live, that we only see the good parts or the parts that people want to show you. And so you don't sit and suffer alongside people because people don't show that they're suffering. Everybody wants to, like we say here, like keep up with the Joneses. Everybody wants to have the best thing and want to show off the best thing. And they try and hide all of those things that are hurting them or most people would not look upon favorably, instead of sharing those things and letting people feel things again, I think is what we really need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. My last question is it something that you can, I don't know, sue or file a legal action? Do you have any legal basis for that?
Well, so
there's steps, things that have to happen before that is a possibility.
We still don't have her medical examiner's report. It's been almost 6 months, and we're now fighting to get her medical examiner's report released to us. So as of right now, her cause of death is still technically under investigation. We don't know why it's taking so long for her medical examiner's report. We don't know what kind of good work they're going to do with it or bad work they're going to do with it. We don't know if it's going to say died of myocarditis due to mRNA inflammation. That would be a best case scenario. Or if it's going to say cause of death undetermined. And in that case, that changes everything. But I think that they're slow walking it because, these are all people with an interest in the same money laundering scheme, the same Pfizer money. The doctor that gave her the shot was incentivized, to give the shot as frequently as she could by Pfizer. Pfizer was paying out checks. Every single shot that doctor gave.
Every doctor gives.
Every doctor gives in America, they get a kickback, an incentive to give that shot. So if you come
in, this is legal public information.
Oh yeah, yeah. So if you come in with a stub toe to your doctor, and they take care of your stub toe, she gets an extra $100 if she says, "Hey, let me give you this COVID vaccine while you're here." And so, yeah, they're incentivized by the drug manufacturer to give you that shot while you're there for whatever reason.
So we have to get those results from the ME's office first, and then we have several doctors and pathologists that would like to test her slides as well.
We don't.
They can't do that until the ME's office is finished.
Right.
So we have independent facilities that are willing to do tests and stuff. So we'll have to have that done as well. And that's just on our side for us. There's a whole nother thing in the government because, they got this emergency use authorization. So you're not really allowed to sue them right now, but it needs to be proven first that they've committed fraud, which we all know that they have.
Yeah, which we know of one specific case that proves fraud. Like we know the entire story. We have the eyewitness testimony. We've spoken with the woman. We know that Pfizer committed fraud.
What kind of fraud?
Well, there's a woman. Her name is Stephanie DeGarry. Her daughter Maddie was 12 years old. She enrolled her daughter Maddie into the Pfizer trials for 12 to 15-year-olds, and she was thinking at the time, "Great, Maddie will have protection against COVID
ahead of everybody else.
No,
she thought she was being a good mom, doing the right thing.
Right. And Pfizer had told her that if anything goes wrong, anything goes bad, don't worry about it. We've got the medical costs covered 100%. So she looked at it as a no-lose kind of situation. She enrolls Maddie into the program. Maddie gets her first shot, and despite some soreness at the injection area, nothing really bad. 3 weeks later, she comes back for the second shot, and the next day everything went bad. She started having where she said chest pain. It felt like somebody was ripping her heart out through her throat. She started having difficulty swallowing. Then she lost the control and feeling in her legs. She started throwing up every time she was able to eat. So they took her to the emergency room, which is the same hospital where they did the trial, and took her to the emergency room several times. They told her that this was not real, that this was all in her head, and that this was that she was making it up. They put this girl into a psychiatric ward. Saying that she was making it up,
that she couldn't move, that she was not really paralyzed, that it was all in her head.
That it was all in her head. And they, at that point, the doctor who was leading the trial, his name was Dr. Frank.
I can't remember.
Dr. Frank, I believe that was his name. He came to Stephanie and he said, well, unfortunately, Maddie had some kind of pre-existing condition that we missed. So we're going to have to pull Maddie from the trial.
So they dropped her from the trial.
Yeah, they dropped her from the trial.
Didn't put any of these adverse reactions down in their records.
If you look at the trial data for Maddie DeGarre under the Pfizer 12 to 15-year-old trials in 2020, it'll say upset stomach.
Was the only reaction that she had.
The only reaction that they have recorded for Maddie DeGarre is upset stomach.
This poor girl is
confined to a wheelchair now.
She has to eat out of a feeding tube. She will never have a life like she was supposed to. And Pfizer has not given them a dime.
Not a dime.
Hasn't given them any money, dropped them from the study. So it wasn't even reported, any of this stuff.
Right.
That is fraud.
Yeah. That is gross fraud and just absolute evil. And that's what these evil
people have done. Yeah.
Sons of have done. And so the emergency use authorization covers their immunity from being sued, but it doesn't cover their immunity if they're found to have committed fraud. So the moment that a court of law can prove that Pfizer committed fraud, down comes that wall of immunity.
And then everyone can sue.
And then we can all make sure Pfizer ceases to exist.
Yeah, because that is what would be the ideal thing, is to bankrupt them so that they do not have the money to do this again to us.
Yeah.
That they have no ability to, because they're already talking about the next disease that's coming out, the next pandemic that's going to happen. Right now, I mean, how do they,
Yeah, what the Maddie story that you just told me made me think how many cases like that could have happened that actually are not reflected in the trial results that we.
I'm sure they did that to anyone who had adverse reactions like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I knew. Yeah.
It's
I mean, when I saw that the results of the trials were so sort of a little bit of side effects here and there, that it's not that bad. When I saw that, I couldn't really believe that, but I didn't know how they could have gone to have such a more or less trial results. But now this specific example sheds a light how you reach that kind of outcome. Okay. Wow.
Stephanie,
that's mind-blowing.
Yeah. How we met Stephanie was big after Trista passed, and we discovered that the most likely culprit, is how we felt at the time, was the COVID vaccine. Stephanie contacted us, and she feels this unnecessary level of guilt because she feels like she wasn't loud enough.
She feels like if she had made Pfizer keep her in there, and Pfizer had she come out and said what had happened to her daughter more loudly, that Trista
would still be alive. She said, had Pfizer not lied about what they did to my daughter, your daughter would still be alive.
Which that statement I completely agree with. Had
Right.
Pfizer not lied, but Stephanie is.
But it's not Stephanie's fault.
No.
Stephanie's crying and she's saying,
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I should have been louder. I should have. I'm like,
We hold
this
her,
girl.
no.
She's been working her butt off to try to get Maddie's story out there.
Yeah.
To help save lives.
But had Pfizer not lied, and that's the whole thing with Trista, had she heard anything negative about it, I don't think she would have gotten it, because of like how we said how she was, that she would not even eat, a spicy candy that she didn't know about. That if she heard that there were bad things that could possibly happen, she would not have taken the chance.
Had I been able to show Trista Maddie's story, had I been able to let her watch Stephanie and Maddie talking to Congress and to podcast people like this and telling her story and seeing Maddie, Trista would not have taken the vaccine. I know she wouldn't have. And she would still be alive. And that is, but the media refuses to cover it. You don't know. I'm telling you now. I think this is probably the first time you've heard of Maddie DeGarry and Stephanie DeGarry.
Yeah.
And this story should be everywhere. This story should be on Fox. It should be on CNN. It should be on CBC. It should be on the BBC. It should be everywhere. But it's not. Because if you try to post Maddie's story on Facebook, it immediately gets taken down as misinformation.
That's what makes me really angry.
Yeah.
Frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, Taylor, thank you so much for talking to me, sharing your story with me. I wish you strength. And I know that there's nothing that's gonna make you, feel better. I cannot even imagine what you're going through. Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to say?
One last thing, is just that we are we're still trying to pay for her headstone. We don't make a lot of money. We're just lower middle class in America. But if they won't make her plot until we get it paid for, and we still owe like $14,000. And so we have a Give, Send, Go set up. If people can help us pay for that, that would be fantastic. And anything over that, if we do get anything over it, that we're gonna put that towards fighting this. We've got a URL now, and we're trying to build a website that people can go to get factual data. You can get real information about the dangers of this shot without having to read anything about microchips or
no
green lizard people.
Theories.
Yeah, no conspiracy theory stuff. No green lizard people. No flat Earth stuff. No ridiculousness. Just factual data about this shot. Doctors' information like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Mackus, Dr. Ryan Cole, people who have actually been on the front line and helped these people. So we want to do that. We want to try to get as many politicians aware of this and fighting on our side as we can. We want to get a legal team that we can at least try to finance. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, a lot of them will do it on content. No, they won't. This is a big fight. This is a big fight. And a lot of people are trying to fight it right now, and they're having limited success. And one more arrow coming their way is might not be a lot, but it'll be something. And so if you could go to givesendgo.com/justice4 Trista and anything else.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.